Hello and welcome to another episode of the BSN podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 5th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Wednesday, October 5th here today, coming off in a historic night last night in the world of baseball, specifically with the New York Yankees as Judge knocks in home run 62. Cole passes Ron Guidry with 257 strikeouts on the season to set a new single-season Yankee record. Obviously, Guidry had 248. Cole passed him last night. It was awesome to see all those records happen, especially early in the game. Now today's it. Today wraps up the regular season. Then we get ready for postseason baseball, which will start on Friday. Looking forward to the wild card round. It's always nice not having your team have to play in the wild card round. You get a little bit of a couple days off, get to sit back and enjoy the wild card round. And then once the DS hits for both the AL and the NL, that's when things really start to get going with the Yankees waiting the winner of the Guardians and the Rays. And the Mets will have a matchup on Friday night. Padres-Mets Friday night will be the first of three game set. If the Padres win two, then they're in. If the Mets win two, it's best 2 of 3. So it's best of 3. It's weird because, if you have one off night, you're back all of a sudden against the wall in game 2. That's just kind of how it is. But all 3 games will be at City. So that's the one advantage the Mets do get there as playing the Padres. Obviously not where they want to be. We'll get into them and all that good stuff. Although today's final day of the regular season, game 162 for all the teams out there. So Yankees will be on today. All the games start 4 Eastern, except the Orioles Blue Jays game will be played today. They have a doubleheader. They'll be at 12 and I think Eastern and 4. But the playoffs don't matter the games today don't mean anything. The playoffs are all set. Everything's all set. Brackets are complete. Everything's all set. There can be no more movement. All the playoff spots have been clinched. No team can get a higher seed than the other seed. The last domino to fall was really last night with the Braves officially clinching the NL East. So the playoffs brackets all set. So today really means nothing. The biggest thing today, if you're a baseball fan, is just get out of the game healthy. That's all you ask for. Get out of the game. Obviously, you want to win. For the Yankees, you'd like to see a win today, get to 100 on the season. That's always a nice goal for a team to have. We'll see how it all plays out. So topics for today's podcast, we're going to get into Aaron Judge and Gerrit Cole, talk about their records, what this means for the Yankees, talk about the game last night, and now with all these records broken, now focus officially shifts to the postseason here as the Yankees will await the winner of the Guardians and the Rays wild card series. Then we'll get to the Mets. We'll talk about their kind of just fall from the NL East. I'll talk about where it went wrong for the New York Mets, because a lot of people think it's many different areas. I think it's about a 2-week stretch where it's actually more about 3-4 weeks. It's more about a month stretch where it really went wrong for the New York Mets. You could talk about the Braves series and know that wasn't good, but there is one big thing that went wrong for the New York Mets. We'll get into that. And then we'll finish things off with the New York Sports Update. As always, Yankees today, Rangers, final game of a 4-game set, final game of the regular season, and the Mets close out the regular season today against the Nationals. They'll also look for the series sweep against the Nationals. The Yankees today will look for the series win. And also 100th win of the year. Mets will look for win 101. Fourth time they've hit 100 wins in franchise history last night, so that was good for them. Nobody was at that game, by the way. Citi Field yesterday was dead. There was nobody there yesterday. Nobody there. So it was interesting because, I think, obviously, it was interesting because, you have the doubleheader. Well, the weather wasn't great, but if the Braves did win or the Braves did lose yesterday, today would be, the Braves have to win today and the Mets would have to win and they win the division then. So, yeah, the crowd wasn't great. I know it's not like the Mets-Dodgers and it's like a great series. It's the final series of the season. There's not a ton of energy. You just want to get to the postseason already. But there was nobody at Citi Field yesterday. Nobody was there. Cold, wet, rainy. Do you really blame people? I would say no. So, anyway, with all that being said, a lot to get into today on the podcast. This is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So, last night we witnessed some history in baseball. This is always an exciting time of year because you get this type of history. Not all the time, but you always get some of these, historic things or some of these, great accolades for certain players players, whether it's like a guy, hitting over a certain batting average, a guy breaking a certain record. We never really thought this record would ever be broken, especially with the way, how the steroid era went. And then after the steroid era, we really haven't seen anybody really come close. I mean, Judge obviously hit 52 his rookie year, but that was still 9 away from Roger Maris and 10 away from beating Maris. And last night, it was officially done. Judge beats Roger Maris with his 62nd home run on the season, and he is the new American League home run record. I'm not going to get into the clean record, all that stuff. He's the new American League home run record. We leave it at that. He is the new Yankee home run leader record at 62. Passes Roger Maris, who hit 61 in 1961, Babe Ruth, who hit 60 in 1927. So it hasn't been done in about 61 years. It's been 61 years since 61's been broken, which is why when you see these things, this is just special. I mean, this is a special moment we witnessed last night. And it was good to finally see Judge get it done, because now, today, I assume they will probably rest him up. I'm assuming they're going to probably rest a lot of guys today. You don't want to risk injury. You don't want to risk, anything, dumb happening. It's the final regular season game of the season. You're not playing for anything. The only thing you're really playing for today is to get to the 100-win mark, and that's not even going to make or break anything. If you don't get to 100 wins, you don't get to 100 wins. It is what it is. It's a nice goal to hit, but it's not something where you need to go all out and try your hardest in the final game of the season to win 100 games, because that, once the postseason hits, nobody's going to care about what happened in the regular season. So I'd assume today's probably going to get the day off, but it was good to see it happen, because you didn't want to go into today with the possibility of him having to hit 62, all the pressure, have about 4 at-bats to do it, and then, him, play today. I mean, he's played like 55-something consecutive games. He's played a ton of games in a row, Judge has, and that's obviously really good, but at the same time, he needs some rest, and especially before the postseason, and obviously throwing him out there every day, it was good to finally see him, kind of get that monkey off his back, get the home run. It was awesome to see. It's history, and again, us as Yankee fans, you have to cherish this moment. I mean, watching that game last night, seeing him do it, live was just phenomenal. Obviously, live, I wasn't in the stadium, but I'm talking about live on TV. It's phenomenal. I mean, this is something you don't see often. You have to cherish this. I mean, last night, a historical moment happened that we may never see until another 60 years down the road. It's really possible, because 61 years ago, Maris hit 61. And now 61 years later, Judge finally beats his record. That record's been standing for 61 years. So this is something that does not happen every other day. This isn't something that happens, every other year, or a record that's getting beat every other year. This is something that's historic, and something that, we don't know when the next time you'll really witness it. It's the truth. I mean, maybe Judge beats his own record next year. We'll see. But this is special. And it was great to see it happen. And I know it didn't happen at home, but it doesn't matter. He clearly had less pressure on the road. It was a tough, Rangers is not a very easy park. That's a deep ballpark. And he got a great pitch to hit, kind of a hanging, I think it was a hanging pitch over the plate. He missed the one earlier in the day. He clearly got frustrated, and he got another one, game 2, took full advantage of it, leadoff shot, which is what you want to see. And again, it's crazy, because when we went into this year, right, when we went into this season with Aaron Judge, and by the way, Cashman has to give him everything now. You have to throw the bank at Aaron Judge. Again, when we went into the season, we all kind of were trying to put out our stat lines of what Judge needs to do this year in order to get, an extension next season with the Yankees. Obviously, the whole opening day stuff, nothing getting done, them releasing the numbers, Judge not really being happy about it, all that stuff. And we also say, look, he's got to play upwards to 140, 150 games this year if he wants to come back. Well, Judge has answered that question too. Today, he's played 157 games. If he plays today, that will be 158. That is by far the most in his career. His rookie season in 2017, he played 155. That's the second most. This year, he played the most games he ever has in his career. And by the way, back-to-back season, he's played over 145 games, which is what you want to see. A guy that had struggled to stay healthy through the first, 2, 3, 4 years of his career. The last 2 has been very healthy and has been out there making an impact. But if you look at Judge's numbers last year, batting .287, .373 on base percentage, .544 slugging, and an OPS of .916, he cranked in 39 home runs, and he had a very good season there, and he also had 98 RBIs. We said that was a very good year, all-star, all that great stuff. It was kind of a bounce-back season from the 2020 season where he only played 28 games and wasn't much of a factor in those. It was just a bad year, right? We said going into the season, if he puts up those numbers, 40 home runs, 280, 290 batting average, you got to give him the money. But there was also some of those, at the time, what felt like a pipe dream where people was like, what if he goes down? I remember having this conversation with somebody early in the year before the season started. I think it might have been during the lockout. Like, imagine if Judge this year rejects the contract, goes into this contract year with a ton of motivation, goes out and cranks in and beats Roger Maris's record. And it's now true. It's now happened. And oh yeah, by the way, by doing it, he's 5th in the league in average, tied for first in RBIs, 131, leads the league in OPS, and yeah, by a complete landslide, he leads the league in home runs at 62. So if you're the Yankees, you got to give everything to Aaron Judge this offseason. You have to. You have to, because at the beginning of the year, we put out these stat lines, and everybody said if he bats 240, cranks in 290 rather, cranks in 100 RBIs, has about 40 RBI or 40 home runs rather, and he plays 145, 150 games, you give him the money. But you look at the numbers now and you say, geez, 311, 425 on base percentage, a slugging at 686, and oh my gosh, an OPS above 1,000 at 1.111, and a WAR of 10.7, which is the highest in his career. You throw the bank at Aaron Judge. You have to now. And last night officially sets it in stone that Yankees got to give Judge everything he wants. You have to. I don't care that he's 30 years old. He just put up his best season. You can't pull the age card out now. If you're anti-signing Aaron Judge, I don't know. You're not a Yankee fan then. He's 30 years old. I get that, but this is his best season at 30. He's got 7-8 really good years left. Yankees got to do whatever it takes to get Judge back, especially after what he did last night, officially breaking the record of 62. And again, it was good to see him do it last night because you didn't want to go into, Maris did it and went final day of the regular season and stuff, but you didn't want to see him go into today, all that stress, it had to be done yesterday because, and then you don't want it either. Like, if he didn't get it today and, he's stuck at 61 and you go into the postseason, it's still an excellent year, don't get me wrong. I mean, 61, 62, it's phenomenal. But, I'm sure, he would probably be, a little bit bummed not being able to do it. But, it's big. It really is big. And, the fact that he was able to do it, what's crazy is baseball is just wild like this. 99, the Yankees are 99 and 62. Aaron Judge is number 99, and he hit 62 home runs last night. I mean, that's just crazy. If that's not crazy, I don't know what is. It's almost like it was meant to happen. Great to see that Aaron Judge. And now into the postseason. And he's been very good in the postseason. He's been the guy that you always look forward to seeing out there, and Judge passes Maris. So let me give you the top, the top 5 here. So Judge is number 1 now in Yankees history at 62. Maris number 2 at 61. Ruth number 3 with 60. Babe's also number 4 with 59. Mantle and A-Rod are tied. Mantle, A-Rod, and Babe are all tied for 5th at 54. Then 9th is Judge at 52. Mantle, 52. And then 11th, Lou Gehrig, Ruth, and all them at 49. A-Rod's on that list, too. So a lot of Yankee, a lot of greats on there. Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Judge. And Judge passes Maris. And he passed Ruth, obviously, or tied Ruth. He tied Babe against the Pirates. Passed Babe against the Blue Jays. Tied Maris against the Blue Jays, obviously. And then passed Maris last night with number 62. And John Sterling's call was phenomenal. I mean, I think out of all of them, I think he had the best call. I mean, it was phenomenal. Babe doing it in 27 or 1927. Gehrig doing it in 1961. Now Judge doing it in 2022, obviously. That was a great call. Great call. And the pure the raw emotion out of all the announcers, even the Yes Network as well. The raw emotion when they showed him in the booth was just, it's truly just, it's a great moment. I mean, it's a moment that you don't witness very often. And when you do, you got to cherish every bit of it. So congrats to Judge. Excellent, excellent season. And now for him, most likely, I don't know if he'll be in the lineup tonight. We'll see. But now most likely he will carry 62 home runs into the postseason. And let's see if he can. Let's see what he does in the postseason. And then also last night, which I know is kind of in the grand scheme of things with Judge, and I don't want this to get overlooked because Judge's honor is great, but Gerrit Cole last night passed an excellent record as well. And I want to say this about Gerrit Cole. We've been very critical of him this year, no doubt about it. The biggest thing, and I'll continue to say it, is the biggest thing with Gerrit Cole this season has been the home runs. Last night, yet again, he allowed another home run, 2-run shot. They lose. Like, the biggest thing with Cole this year has been the home run, and it's been that one inning. And most of the time, it's the one inning with the home run. Like, he'll let up a 3-run homer, and then he'll let up another home run, and boom, it's a 4-run inning. That's been the biggest issue with Cole this year. Other than that, and David Cone kind of broke it down pretty well last night. Again, we'll see what Cole does in the postseason. Was it his best regular season numbers outside of the strikeouts? I don't know. I would probably say no. I mean, we maybe expected a little bit more out of him this year. But, I mean, look, he broke a strikeout record that we didn't, that's an historic one held by Ron Guidry, in which, that's another, record that, Guidry obviously did in 78 during that great year that he had. But it's been the big home run with Cole. That's been the biggest issue. And last night kind of showed that, like, he passes Guidry on the strikeouts, and yet it's like he's putting up all these strikeouts. It's just a big home run. And Cole's big. This is a big postseason for Cole because if he goes out there and dominates in the postseason, that's your ace. Like, that's what you wanted to see out of your $300 million ace. But Cole last night, it was also really cool to see him hit 257 strikeouts. So he tied it in Toronto at 248, and then he had one final start in the regular season with yesterday, and obviously he got the job done yesterday, hitting 249 in the first inning. Was able to strike out, 8 more after that? 249. No, 7 more after that, right? 8 more, I don't know. 8 more after that. So what? 9 on the day, I think it was, and was able to get a pretty cool record himself. He has 257 strikeouts, so he is the new Yankee single season strikeout record holder. He almost passed Guidry last year. He was at 243. Guidry obviously at 248. So he's 5 away last year from Guidry, and had 14 more strikeouts this year. Passes Guidry by 9. And Cole also got the job done last night, making a little bit of history with 257. And again, you can look at all the other things. His strikeouts have been there. He's racking them up. New single-season record. I mean, that 78 season by Guidry was phenomenal. Another record which, again, we haven't seen been broken since. This has been a record that has stood since 1978. I mean, even some of the greatest Yankees, some of the better pitchers out there, even like a guy like a CeCe, David Cone during some of those years, Mike Mussina, some of those years. None of those guys were even able to get. Now, CeCe is actually 5th all time, 230, so he got close. But you would think through all the years of, all these different guys, that's another record that has stood for a while. So another record last night that you see that's pretty special, all things considering. We haven't seen it be broken since 78. It's been standing since 78. Maris was standing since 61, and we saw 2 records that were standing since the 70s and the 60s now gone. So last night was truly historic. Truly historic. And that's the best part of the end of the regular season. Sometimes, the games aren't as, fun to watch because, you're just trying to get to the postseason. But when these histories on the line like this, it is really cool to see. So Cole leads now the Yankees with 257. Guidry behind him. Then it's Cole again. Then Chesbro with the New York Highlanders all the way back in 1904 at 239. CeCe and Sevy. 2017 season for Sevy. CeCe, obviously, one of my favorite Yankees. My favorite Yankee of all time with 230 strikeouts. Cone then at 222. That's 7. Sevy again in 2018 at 220. Perez at 218 and 9 in 1992. And then Downing at 217. And then Mussina, Clemens, so on. Cone's back on there. Whitey Ford, all those guys are up there amongst the top. 79, Guidry's actually 20th. So A.J. Burnett, a lot of really good Yankee pitchers on this list of strikeouts. And, you got 2 current players right now in the top 5 with Sevy and 230, and then Cole with 1 and 3, passing some Yankee greats last year as well. 5 short last year, so came out this year and got the job done 257. So an historic night last night for the Yankees and for Gerrit Cole and Aaron Judge. And now comes the postseason. And obviously that's the biggest thing. That the goal is to win a championship. That's what has to be done this year. For the Yankees, it's every year the expectation is to win a championship, and you got to take care of business this year. So we'll see how it all plays out. Now we go to the New York Mets. So great night last night for the Yankees. Congrats to Judge and Cole on their historic nights. And now focus shifts to the postseason. Obviously one more game today, but after that, it's getting ready to see who wins the Guardians-Rays series and then match up against them. And then that gets things going in October baseball. Now we get to the Mets. And unlike the Yankees, the Mets not much of a positive subject here for the New York Mets, as they obviously go down to Atlanta, get swept into 3 games, lose game 1, which with DeGrom on the mound 5-2, lose game 2 4-2, and then lose game 3 5-3. They get swept. You could point to many different things with the Mets of what went wrong in that series. To me, the biggest issue with the Mets in that series was Jacob DeGrom, Max Scherzer, and Chris Bassett. It was the 3 starting pitchers. They let you down. Sure, the bats weren't very good. Sure, they had moments. Lindor wasn't able to step up. Sure, Marte's out, and that's definitely a big hole in the lineup. But, I mean, when your pitching goes out there and, lays a dud like they did, 5 runs, 4 runs, and then 5 runs, a total of 14 runs in, 3 games, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And, you go out, DeGrom's obviously already on the roster. You bring in Bassett and you give Scherzer a ton of money. Those are the guys that you need to have step up in big moments. Those are the reason you have those guys in your rotation to step up in big moments like there was an opportunity to in Atlanta, and neither guy could step up. And everybody really struggled. The bats weren't getting going. The pitching was awful, fell behind early, pitching not able to hold on to leads, all that stuff. The pitching is to blame in that series. Yes, the bats weren't good, don't get me wrong, but to be fair here, the Braves had their best pitchers lined up too. Kyle Wright, Morin, and, Max Fried. Those 3 guys are pretty solid, especially Max Fried, being the ace of that rotation. So to be fair, you got to realize going into that series, look, the Braves are going to line up their 3 best. We're going to line up our 3 best. It has to be a pitching duel. And when you get, when you let up 2 5-run games and 1 4-run game, it's not going to work. You got to realize as a pitcher going into that game, look, they got their best pitchers out there. Our hitters aren't going to be able to put up 5-6 runs. We have to do a good enough job limiting the damage, and they didn't do that. That's my biggest thing. I think a lot of people out there are ignoring the fact that the Braves had their 3 better pitchers out there too. On paper, are they as good as Jacob DeGrom, Max Scherzer, and Bassett? No, but they outpitched them. Look, in the World Series and the playoffs, a lot of times pitching is what's going to get the job done. A lot of times it is. Same thing in this case. NL East title on the line. An opportunity to go into Atlanta, win the series, clinch it, then, all you got to do then is just sweep the Nationals, or if you take 2 or 3 and then win 1 against the Nationals, you win the division. You could have drawn it up any other way. Mets go in there and lay a dud. And yesterday you get a little bit of false hope with, the Braves losing to the Marlins, on Monday that was. That was a little bit of a hangover. They get the job done yesterday 2-1, and the Braves are now in second. Mets are now in second place. And look, they had a 10.5 game lead. I mean, wire to wire. It was almost a wire to wire NL East title, NL East division, where the Braves started out really slow. And look, I was wrong. I thought the Mets were going to go into that Braves series with a larger lead. And that gets me to my point of where I think things went wrong for the New York Mets. It's the month of September. I mean, I don't think anybody else could say. Sure, you look at the paper, you look on the box score and you look down the schedule and you say, they went 15-11 in the month of September. You could have said that, and all right, that's true. And the Braves went 18-8. But the month of September is the biggest thing to me that went wrong. When you go 15-11 against the teams that you played, that is unacceptable. And it's almost like it was right after that Dodgers series in that leaked into September where the Mets took 2 or 3 against the Dodgers. And it was like after that, they just weren't the same team the rest of the way. And I'm not saying it's because of the Dodgers. I'm not saying that. But it's weird, because, again, that's after that. That's when the schedule started to weaken up a little bit. You then had 3 against the Nationals. You lost 2 or 3 against them. That's unacceptable. That can't happen. You go to Pittsburgh. You lose the first game against Pittsburgh, and then you obviously win the next two. You go to Miami. You were able to, you're able to take 2 or 3 after losing the first game. What really, I think, ruined it for the Mets was the sweep against the Cubs. They go home. They have 3 games against the Chicago Cubs, and they lose all 3. 5-2, 4-1, 6-3. Combined outscored 15-6 in the 27 innings of baseball that they played. That's unacceptable. Sweep against the Cubs, losing 2 or 3 against the Nationals. These are all teams you should be beating. These are all teams you are better than. Right? The Nationals are a rebuilding team right now. Cubs are a rebuilding team right now. Those are all teams that you should be beating. And to those 6 games, to go 1-5 in those 6 games is unacceptable. So to me, and I'll continue to go down the list here, even down to the A series, where you have 5 games before you play the Braves. 3 against Oakland, 2 against Miami. And by the way, that Miami series was at home. So you can give me, Oakland, we took 2 or 3, but West Coast trip, all that stuff. You can give me all that. Great. But, right, you went 3-2 in those 5 games, including one of those games, Jacob deGrom completely lays a dud out there in that 10-4 loss. And look, I've complimented Buck Showalter a lot this season. I've complimented this Met team a lot this season. In August, I said I thought that this Braves series wasn't going to mean a ton. I thought the Mets would have a 5-6 game lead on them, not because of the Braves weren't good enough, because of the Mets' schedule. And the Mets didn't take advantage of that. So you could point to every different angle. To me, the biggest reason why the Mets lost this division is they didn't take care of business the teams they should have beat. Losing 3 against the Cubs, going home and splitting against the Marlins before the Braves series. And even the game you won, you had to go into extra innings. I mean, they went into that Braves series limping. They went into that Braves series struggling. Braves went into the series hot and on a roll. Mets didn't. And sure, you got to give some credit to the Braves. They went 18-8 in the month of September, 10 games above 500. Mets went 15-11. They obviously took care against the Mets at home, all that stuff. You do have to give some credit to the Braves. But when you go into the month of September and you play teams, rebuilding teams like the A's, like the Pirates, like the Nationals, like the Cubs, even a Brewers team that sure they're good. Now you did, even a Brewers, you did lose the final game of the Brewers series. You did win them. But even the best team you played in September outside of the Braves was the Brewers. And they're not even a playoff team. The Phillies got in over them. I mean, you had countless opportunities to run away with the division. I'm not saying 10-game lead again, but I'm saying a 4, 5, 6-game lead where you go into that final game, you go into the final 3-game series, and you just got to find a way to win one of those games, or the final 6 games again of the season, you just got to find a way to win one, and you clinch the division. If the Mets did what they needed to do against the bad teams, they would have done that, and they didn't do it. And they went into that Brave series limping. And I said this on my Bubs Talking Baseball podcast that I do on Apple. And I said this. I said, that A's series is when you could kind of get the feeling like they're going to go into Atlanta. And I said it. I said it. I mean, you could see it from a mile away. You had the bad DeGrom start. You win the final game in Oakland. You lose the first game against Miami. You barely beat them in the second game at home. These are at home. I mean, you should beat Miami twice. And there should be no excuse. I mean, again, win is a win. I understand that. But, just talking about in terms of just momentum, barely being able to beat Miami, and then you have to go to Atlanta to play the Braves, that's not good. Losing 3 to Chicago at home, I mean, that's unacceptable. But you could start to see it. You could start to see the downfall forming when DeGrom laid that dud in Oakland, where he went out there and got dominated by an Oakland team that has been historically bad this year. I believe they have the second worst record in all of baseball. That's unacceptable. And then you go back home, you barely beat the Marlins, and then you go into that series against the Braves, and you could just start to see it where they just weren't ready. They were playing like down to their opponents. And that's the one thing, again, back to my point, like, I didn't really kind of expand on this earlier, but like when I mentioned like earlier on the podcast today, I've complimented Buck Showalter and all that, how he's always had the team ready to play. This was the first time all year the Mets were not ready for the Braves. Mets were not ready for this. You could tell. They got kind of caught looking ahead. The Mets this season have been very good at bouncing back. Like, they've been very good at when they lose, they come out the next day, they get the win. That's why the Mets this season, for a while there, again, back to my point, that's why they were so consistent. Because, they just took care of business. That's why they, there was like an actual graph that showed how the NL East played out. The Mets were like this the entire year. They were like this because they never got too high, they never got too low. And that's a credit to the manager. He's always got his guys ready to play. Buck always had them believing, always had them playing hard, no matter the opponent, no matter on the road, at home, no matter if it's for the series win, no matter if it's for a sweep, if you're trying to salvage the final game, whatever it is, the Mets always had that kind of that's why they always were on this plane. Then, if you look at the Mets this year, they never really went on that elongated stretch of losing. Like, the Yankees had the month of August that was atrocious. The Mets didn't really have that month. September, they went 15-11. I mean, it wasn't like they were awful in September, but they lost games that they should have been winning. I mean, that's bad. But that's why the Mets have been always so good. But you could start to see that changing late in the year against Oakland and Miami, where it's almost like the Mets kind of got caught looking ahead. They were struggling a little bit. Then you go into Atlanta and you're kind of there was no real groove, no real rhythm, no real momentum. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It really is. And especially when you're on the road where the crowd is going to be in the other team's favor, it's not easy. So I think what ruined it for the Mets was the playoff series. Or not the playoff series, was the month of September. I was about to say the division series against the Braves. It was the month of September. That's what ruined it for the Mets. That's what it was. I don't think it was a specific, sure, you could blame Epler and his deadline decisions, sure. But to be fair, the month of August, the Mets weren't that bad. I mean, after the deadline, they were winning games still. I mean, they were still up in the division. It wasn't until the month of September where they started to play down to the bad teams, and they started to struggle, and they lose games, and now look at them. They got to have to play a 3-game wild card series in Citi Field against the Padres. And if you beat them, well, now you got to play the Dodgers in L.A. in the second round. And who knows, who will be the pitching lining up for that series. So I guess we'll see. It's going to be interesting. And Evan Roberts today, who does a great job at WFAN, posted something on Twitter, like a poll. And he said that something to the effect of, would you rather, DeGrom on the mound game 1, Bassett game 2, and then Scherzer game 3, with the possibility of, if you win game 2, Scherzer will be ready for game 1 against the Dodgers, or do you go all in, just dominate the Padres, move on? I don't know. It would be interesting. But that's another thing that makes the pitching tough. In 3, while you always want to try to avoid the wild card. If you can get into the wild card, that's great. But again, I talk about this. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say that, and Met fans, you have to, this is why, I'm not trying to sit here and say if you get into the wild card, you're not a good team. I'm not trying to say that. No, like, a team like the Cardinals, that's a good spot to be in the wild card. A team like the Guardians, I mean, that's excellent. What Terry Francona has done to that team, phenomenal, the fact that they were able to get into the wild card, right? They were a team that many thought weren't even going to do anything this year to get into wild card. But when you're a team like the Mets, where you lead the division for the entire year, to now have to play in the wild card series, just a complete shot, just a complete punch in the mouth. That's really what it is, right? Like, the same thing with the Yankees. If the Yankees blew the division and had to play in the wild card, that just would be a complete punch in the gut. Certain teams, you love being in the wild card, and the fan bases are very happy with it. But when you lead the division for the amount of time the Mets did, to then blow it late, it's just the Mets should not have to have themselves in this situation, and yet they do, because of the poor play against the teams they should have beat. That's why they're in the spot they are now. So, guess we'll see how it all plays out. But the bracket's all set. Phillies, Cardinals, the winner of that will play the Braves. Mets, Padres, the winner of that play the Dodgers. You go to the AL side of the bracket. It'll be Guardians, Rays. They'll play the Yankees, the winner of that series. And then it'll be Blue Jays, Mariners. And the winner of that will play the Astros. And then the chaos begins from there. And, everything, so on and so forth after that. So that's your playoff bracket. We shall see how it all plays out. And, yeah. All right, so let's get to the New York sports update here. And the rest of the baseball games on today, as today is game 162. 162 on the season. By the way, Judge said that he would love to have the ball back. He wants to have it back. He says, would love to have the historic 67 home run ball back, but admits the fan who called the ball has every right to keep it. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Pujols and Judge both kind of took the high road on that, where, Pujols and Judge kind of took the high road on, they don't, I don't need it back. They could take it, whatever it is. I'll tell you what, though. If they give that ball away, that is a very, that ball is going to cost a lot of money. I'll tell you that for sure. It really will. So, we'll see how it all plays out. All right, so games on today. You got the Orioles, Blue Jays, A's, Angels, Orioles, Blue Jays as well, doubleheader. Pirates, Cardinals, Marlins, Braves, Cubs, Reds, Diamondbacks, Brewers, Padres, Giants, Phillies, Astros, Rays, Red Sox, Royals, Guardians, Tigers, Mariners, Twins, White Sox, and the Dodgers, Rockies. As for the Mets and the Nationals, Eric Fedde's on the mound for the Nationals. He's 6-12 with a 5.27 ERA. Nationals are 55 and 106. Mets are 161. 4:10 Eastern SNY. Mets have not announced their pitcher for today, so we'll see how that goes. As for the Yankees, Rangers, Yankees come into today's game, final game of the season, looking for win 100. They'd be an even 162. Rangers are 97 and 64. Nets, obviously the Yankees are 99 and 62. Yankees got Domingo Germán on the mound. He's 2-4 with a 3.31 ERA. And the Rangers got Glenn Otto on the mound. He's 6-10 with a 4.72 ERA, over under set at 8, 4:05 Eastern. You can find us on Yes. As the Yankees will look to close out the regular season on a win, and then comes rolling in the postseason. As for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing in my main league 438 to 377. In my other league, it looks like I'm going to win the championship 749 to 545. So that's fantasy baseball, and a little depressing. Today was the last day setting up the lineup for fantasy. Obviously, an interesting season in fantasy baseball. I had the best record in the league, clinched the 1 seed, but lost in the playoffs, and I'm going to lose the 3rd place match. So I'm going to finish in 4th place overall, out of, I believe it's 10 teams. So, it wasn't just shows you the regular season means nothing, because last year in fantasy baseball, I went 11-10 and finished in 2nd. This year, I went 16-5 in the regular season, and I'm going to finish in 4th. So, it just shows you that the regular season in baseball, nobody cares. You can win 100 and look at the Mariners. They won 100, whatever, however, 100, 200 games they won in the regular season, right? And they lost in the postseason. So it doesn't matter. You could barely squeak into the postseason, get hot, and make a run. And that's what's the most exciting part about the postseason, is what team is going to barely squeak in and make that run. Who's it going to be? We'll see. All right, so football, as you know, been doing podcasts every other day. So tomorrow is Broncos-Colts. Broncos are 2-2, Colts 1-2-1. Broncos 3.5-point favorites, 8:15 Eastern, Amazon Prime Video, over under 42.5. 78% of people think the Broncos will win. I agree. I'm going to take the Broncos 17-13. I'll take the under on the over 42.5, and I think the Broncos win. Low-scoring game. 2 not good offenses, so we'll see how that goes. But that's my pick for tomorrow night's Thursday night game. And, that will do it for another podcast here today. Keep your eye out. I will have a Bubs Talking Baseball podcast up either today or tomorrow. I'll probably record it today. Whether I upload it today or tomorrow will be, I'll figure that out. I'll be breaking down my postseason bracket. So, doing my postseason bracket, I'll break it down, give you my prediction for who I think is going to win it all, and get you ready for the postseason starting on Friday, which will obviously get you ready as well. On Friday will be a Football Friday podcast. We'll get you ready for the Mets-Padres over the weekend. And then next week, it'll be the Yankees start up, and then we'll see if the Mets are still playing. And, it will be a fun time. So, looking forward to it. Great time of year, October 5th, and things are only starting to heat up. Big Jet game this weekend against the Dolphins. Huge opportunity to win a game within the division and get above 500. Yankees starting the playoffs soon. Mets in the wild card this weekend, Friday through Sunday. So, an exciting time for sports. Basketball preseason, hockey preseason. Those seasons are starting up soon. So, really looking forward to it. Great month ahead. Great games ahead in baseball, football, all that good stuff. So stay tuned here, and we'll have a lot of content coming as always. So hope you enjoyed it, and as always, thanks for watching.